Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing, the podcast for manufacturing leaders and professionals.
Designed for high impact on your way to work or unwind on your way home to gain clarity for tomorrow.
Step out of your comfort zone and discover new perspectives to add value, get results, and make a difference.
Yes, let's jump in.
Good day and welcome back to Mindfulness Manufacturing. Excited to be back here with Dave again.
Hey, yep. Can't wait. Totally excited about this. I love this Canadian tone, but go ahead, Trevor.
We'll get more into that. Hey, we got some, again, great feedback. We so appreciate that. Danny gave us some insights on the last podcast, and there was a phrase that really caught us where he said, I appreciate these truths from experience. That is the essence of this podcast.
Yeah.
It's just real. It's conversational. And we're just taking, hey, this is the experience. These are the shifts, and these are the results. And you can apply this too.
And Danny, thanks so much for that feedback. Folks, when you are inspired, provide the feedback for us. Tell us what you think. This is just exceptional.
So this is personal to me today. Special guest. He was actually the first person I asked to come on the podcast. And a lot of things happen, as we all know, in our careers and get busy. And I locked him down today. So excited to introduce Mark Whitten.
How you doing? Nice to be here. Thanks, Trevor. I remember you. I remember the first conversation we had about coming on to this, and I was excited but busy. And anyway, we got it figured out, and here we are today.
Yeah. So Mark and I have known each other for quite some time. We've collaborated some issues and some projects, and Mark has been through many different areas of manufacturing, from Canada to United States to running plants in Mexico. He's worked from the floor up in health and safety to current CEO. And he has just some great stories. We're excited to have him share with us today. And every journey has its lessons, and we're excited for Mark's lessons. So one thing that I know working with you, Mark, is one of your themes has always been your actions, right? How you're showing up. And you've told me before how important that is to you, just in the fact of getting the rest of the team on board if you're not doing it yourself. So what I'm curious on is, where did this come from, this whole leading by example?
Great question. And fundamentally, this is where it all started for me, right? As a shop floor employee, actually for Freightliner in St. Thomas, Ontario in 1992. Working on the floor as a production operator. That's where I started. And I was probably very critical as a younger person, but I always would, see bosses and, ask questions and these kinds of things. And one of the things I noted early on is, I'd ask a question and never get some feedback. The supervisor would never come back to you with an answer, or, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me because it gave me a perception of what leadership was. So, I think those were the fundamental building blocks of my leadership. Was really about, if you're going to lead, you're going to take that privilege of leading. I call it the burden of leadership, but then you need to walk the talk, and there's a lot of people out there that talk leadership and talk about, these things that they do, but they don't do, talk's cheap. And I think it's the actions that fundamentally what you do every single day. What I do know is that, as a president, CEO, or a general manager, or whatever your position is, and you're walking on your shop floor and you're manufacturing, trust me when I tell you that every single employee watches you. They watch your actions. They watch what you do and how you do and what you say and how you say, because fundamentally, again, you are the leader, right? You're under that scrutiny every single day. And I think if you can't be that person and you can't lead by example, lead with integrity, lead with your actions, then probably leadership is not for you.
Wow. I mean, that's strong. That's strong, Mark. I mean, it's interesting. You said that, when a leader is asked a question, and they never get back to the person that asked that question. Mindfulness manufacturing, right? I mean, what are some of the tips, tricks of the trade, things that, as a busy leader in manufacturing, you get asked questions all the time, being mindful of, man, I got to respond. I don't know the answer. I got to get back to them. How have you done this, or how have you seen it done best to where you do retain that credibility and gain trust with the folks?
I think a lot of it is a lot of it is it's in the DNA. It's in you as a person. You have to be committed. You have to understand that when you take this leadership role, you work for others. Fundamentally, it's an upside down org chart, right? I mean, I honestly believe that my job is to support the 400 people that work in our organization. If I don't make them successful every day, and if I don't help them to commit, imagine if they come to work every single day and they produce quality parts on time every day and they do their job, my life is easy. The opposite is quite true as well. If I don't have an engaged workforce and I don't follow up with people and I lose their, that you talk about, that discretionary effort, right? If I don't have that from our people, then we're not going to be successful, frankly speaking. So to answer your question, I mean, it's in your actions. I mean, you have to be committed, and it's hard. It's hard work. Leadership is not an easy thing. You're busy. You got a lot of things. You answer to a board of directors. You got a lot of stuff happening, customers, but you got to prioritize, and you got to understand that the people in your organization will make or break you. And if you engage them, their hearts and minds, and you work with them and you support them every single day, they'll give you that discretionary effort. I've seen it and felt it every single day because I force myself and my leadership team to be committed to that.
Yeah.
That makes me think, Mark, I know you've been a part of a lot of transformations in plants, going to plants that were struggling, and you've led that turnaround. And you're going to have a certain group of leaders that aren't getting back to people. Obviously, if you're going to turn a plant around, there's a reason that it needs help. And you can't just go in there and fire everybody. That's not the answer. How do you coach? How do you get people on board that just, they see you, but they're not making those changes, but they need to?
Yeah, great question. I'll talk about for a minute just one transformation that I had, and I'll start here and then come to the answer. I went to this operation in Kentucky. My first 2 days, I was there and met with the management team. Went around the table, kind of a little bit about myself, wanted to know who they were, and then I asked to go for a walk on the floor. I said, let's go for what you guys walk, lead me through the shop floor, and let's go out and have a walk. And I do this specifically, and I walk at the back of the group and I observe the management's behavior. So, and what I saw on that first walk in this very large manufacturing facility, fork trucks, welding, stamping, et cetera, there's very specific safety rules and things like that. What I witnessed from the leadership team, this is the highest level of leadership in the organization, the ones that are leading the company, is, well, they broke every safety rule possible, right? Glasses on the head, talking on their cell phones and walking, which was a rule, cutting across aisleways, earplugs hanging out, and then also walking by the garbage on the floor, right? So as I'm behind them, I'm picking up the garbage as I walk behind them, but I follow them. We go for a tour. We come back and got back into the boardroom, and we sat down, and I said, I get it. I totally understand what the problem is in this organization now. It's every single one of you. And I was very hard with them and very, very frank, because their behavior was unacceptable. And to walk out on that shop floor and to basically break every rule possible, how can you possibly ask the workforce to follow safety rules, to work safely, to come to work, to give that extra effort, if the leadership team is not fundamentally going to do it? So, I mean, again, that's really fundamentally where I think it's the walking the talk, it's the behavior. What I do is in how I get my leadership to commit to it is I'm going to be the hardest worker there. I'm going to be the one that's out getting filthy dirty and picking up garbage and doing that stuff, because I'm never going to ask my people, my leadership team, nor our associates, never going to ask them to do something I'm not personally willing to do myself. And we do that. I mean, we go out on the shop floor twice a week for an hour and we clean. Leadership, management goes out and we clean filthy behind presses and stuff like that. And the workforce gets a real kick out of it. They love it. They laugh. They're sweating out there and everything else. But the point is, they see that we are willing to do it and how important it is. And by doing that, they become willing. And I can ask them, I can stand in front of any of our people and ask them, I need you to do this. We need to, clean up the workforce. We need to do these things. And they're fully willing to do that because they know this guy here is going to be the guy leading the charge. And that fundamentally, to answer your question, that's what it is. You got to be willing to put the work in.
Right. So Mark, how do you balance that as a leader in a position of president, CEO of a company? How do you balance that with the stress and the demands of the 9-to-5 calls and meeting with, investors and those that, tell us about that balance and how you keep that balance from what you just described. You're president, CEO of a company. How does that work, man?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It ain't easy, and it's not 9 to 5. It's 7 to 7 ish, and maybe later. But to your point, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's prioritizing, but having good people around you, having a good team around you can take that burden, some of that stress, and help. I got a great CFO. I've got great leaders in our organization, directors. They are engaged. They support. They understand. We prioritize. But frankly speaking, I'm not perfect. I know that, and I know that I slip up, and things get behind. But I really try to put the priority into a change in this company to a positive from being, I wouldn't call underperformance, but I'd call it mediocrity to being a performing organization. It's a lot of work, and you've got to have the team around you. Frankly speaking, I can't be successful if I don't have great leadership around me. I'm going to struggle, and I'm going to fail. Is how I feel about it. It is a balance. It is difficult. About setting priorities. I do one-on-ones. I do a lot of different things. Where I sprinkle in stuff where my assistant helps me, and I do one-on-ones with employees. So again, trying to keep a balance, right, of that leading by example, talking with the people, et cetera, while at the same time, I got board calls, we got board meetings, we've got investors, we've got customers. It's not an easy job, but I love what I do, and I'm very passionate about it.
Mark, in those one-on-ones with your people, I'm going to put you on the spot here, man. All right. But best feedback, most challenging feedback you've gotten in those one-on-ones. What difference has that made with you leading by example in the organization? The best and contrast it with the most challenging.
Yeah. Well, I'll reference my when I went to Canadian general manager in a Canadian company. I made the decision on day 2 that I was going to meet with every single employee, 535 employees, and I was going to meet one-on-one for 30 minutes with them. So a huge commitment, and I probably at the time didn't recognize how big that was because it took me well over a year to do. I went on to their shift. So I went on the 3rd shift, 2nd shift, 1st shift, wherever they were, I went to them. They didn't come to me. We had a meeting, and I knew every single employee's name. I knew a little bit about something, but I was consistent in saying this. The purpose of this meeting is just to get to know each other. I want to know about you, your family, whatever you're willing to share. I'll do the same. And then at the end, I want to talk about expectations, my expectations of you, and I want to know what your expectations are of me. And that was shocking to people. Many people would look at me strange and say, you want to know what my expectations are of you? And I say, hell yeah, because if you think that I can do something I can't do, we better clarify today, because I don't have pixie dust and I don't have magic. I can do certain things and I can't do other things. So that was interesting to me.
Yes, that is feedback. So cool.
Yeah, it was. Cool. I mean, but here's the thing. Here's the one thing I discovered doing this is people said to me, and it resonated with me for a long time after, and still does. They said, when I said, what are your expectations of me? They said, and I bet you 40 or 50% of the people said to me, please just tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And that resonated with me. Like, man, people, like the reassurance and that of what, knowing they're doing a good job or knowing something's wrong, it was surprised me. That shocked me. And then I had, I did have some people who didn't say anything. They'd come in and sit in front of me, and I do all the talking. I try to get them to talk. They didn't want to share a single thing with me. Very few, only a handful. but there were some. And then there were others that poured out their life to me, crying. I had several people cry in these one-on-ones. I mean, I was brought to tears in one of them. It's incredible when you sit down and you give people, that time, and you listen to them and you ask them questions and you give them that dignity and respect. It's amazing what you will learn. And I tell you again, what I learned doing this was that, again, it's a privilege to be a leader. It's a privilege to lead an organization and people. And fundamentally, working with the people, listening to them and helping them. And that's where it all came from. So again, those were really, really powerful lessons for me.
If we have a listener driving on their way to their organization, love what you're saying, Mark, inspired, they're not going into a place where they're doing one-on-ones right now. And they may not be in a position of authority to do such a thing right away. But no matter what position you're in, you always have control of your day. You have control of what you do. So if they're inspired, they're going in, what's one or two things that they could think about doing today to start towards that path?
Yeah, for me, it's just be yourself and understand that people, our employees have needs in terms of feedback, in terms of, what we can do to help them every single day. Be kind. Leadership is be kind, think about the people, work with them. And again, don't get me wrong. I have very high expectations of my people. However, there's a way in which you can do that, right? And I think it goes back to that leading by example. The simple things you can do is just commit to one or two things in your day. Talk to somebody, grab somebody that you don't have a lot of conversation with and take them aside, have a coffee and ask some questions. And it will fundamentally change your relationship with that person and your relationships with other employees. If you just do simple things like that, it's not rocket science. It's just be kind, talk to people. I never, ever enter or leave the office without saying goodbye to everybody in my path and saying good morning to everybody in my path. I never walk in and don't say good morning or how's your day or whatever. And again, that's that threshold for me. It's that burden of leadership, right? You take on the leadership role. We don't have that we can't wear our emotions on our sleeves. We got to check them at the door, and you got to be consistent. So that's to answer your question. That's what I'm saying. It's just grab somebody and have a coffee and just talk about them and see what happens. See what changes come from that.
Hey, Mark. So, that is fantastic. I can't stop thinking about the one-on-ones prior to that comment. And, I can share with you guys that, I've been on a leadership team in which the entire leadership team did one-on-ones with their staff, with their workforce. And then, in one way and 700-800 people is a large number, right? And you said that it took you over a year to do that. And one of the things that, and I have experienced that, and one of the things that we did to try to offset that, because of people 8-9 months down the road, they're like, hey, you said you were going to do one-on-ones and that was like a year ago. Come on. Now that, so you begin to lose credibility and it's a numbers game. So what we started doing skip level meetings in addition to that. And then, the functional manager, the department manager did one-on-ones and we shook it up, but that kind of bought time so that the one at the helm, it bought them time to have that engagement, have that interaction with people, as opposed to if you're the only one doing it, everybody's sitting on their thumbs, depending on the size of your organization forever. Right.
Yep.
And I appreciate that concept and just thought of it and wanted to share it, maybe with our listeners. If you're thinking in your world, it's not possible for me to do one-on-ones with everybody. Yes, there is. There's always a way to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, we did coffee chats as well. So my HR manager and myself would do coffee chats. We'd grab a group of random employees. Like I think that's what you're referring to, your skip level meetings. And we would just talk. Hey, what's going on, man? No agenda. What's on your mind? What rumors are out there? Let's just fire it up. And it would always be very quiet in the beginning. And then somebody would ask a question and then boom, the floodgates open, and then you're hearing the raw stuff, right? You're hearing what's really going on the shop floor. So that's the value of that. But yeah, I think, again, it's a big commitment, and I did it. I did it by seniority. So I started with the most senior person and worked my way through the list to try to find some level of fairness. And I was all over my assistant to make sure that I didn't miss any person. My fear, I lost sleep over this, that I would miss somebody, to your point, and they would never come forward and ask about it, right? But they would just say, see, that guy is unfair and he doesn't want to do it with me. So I was really crazy about making sure that we hit everybody. We didn't want to miss anyone.
Yeah.
Mark, you've covered a lot of ground over the years in your experience. I can feel the passion. This is just what you live. So give me a story of maybe something that you learned that you went through leading by example. You attempted something and it was like, oh, that maybe pivoted you and got you even deeper into how important it was. What are some things that maybe didn't go as well that makes you in such a state of gratitude for your team that you are today? It's a good question, a tough question.
That's what we do here.
Yeah, I know. I like it. Honestly, I truly feel as a leader, and then of course I've made mistakes, and you learn the hard way. But I would fundamentally say that as a leader, I've never not shown dignity or respect. I've never acted in a way that I would look back and say, I didn't do that right. I truly feel that fundamentally the DNA in me is about being a caring person, kind person. So I don't have regret there, but for sure I've made lots of mistakes, and I think some of those mistakes were believing in people for too long. I truly wanted someone to be successful, and I really I pushed them, but at the end of the day, I knew in my mind they weren't going to get there, and as hard as that is, and then I had to cut ties. But I look back and say, I should have done that differently. I really should have done that differently. And one other thing I'd probably say, there's times when I felt I probably should have given some feedback and I maybe didn't, and it got busy or something like that. And I think that, again, that's the role of a leader. You got to be willing to give feedback. You got to be willing to have those tough conversations and listen to your people and help them. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got to hold people accountable. That's part of it.
I mean, that's so cool you bring that up. There's a book by Dr. Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. And he goes right down that path in the book, Mark. I don't know if you've read it or not, but
I haven't, but I will.
The necessary endings is, a significant piece of that is how leaders fail in the long term because they hold on too long and refuse to accept reality for, and then pull the trigger. But, until we've lost hope, until we've said, okay, this is hopeless and agreed to, cut ties. And I love the fact you bring that up because it's like, honestly, I'm recently have read this book, right? And you're right there, right? President, CEO of a company. And it's like, we struggle. And in this mindfulness thing, we struggle with holding on too long. And I just thought I'd share that with you. Necessary endings is awesome.
Yeah, that's one of those nuggets right here in the podcast that just comes up. And you can be leading by example. You can have 100 people under you. You can have 10 people under you. You can have 2. But if one of those 2 or one of those 100 are not doing it and you're allowing it, that's not leading by example. And that's what gets lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently was contacted to do a little contribution for a book on my worst hire. That's what the title of the book is. I don't think it's out just yet, but when it is, I'll link it in my LinkedIn file. And the person that I was dealing with came on and said, hey, Mark, I'm going around, I'm talking to 100 leaders, and I'm interviewing them on their worst hire. And what would you do differently? And man, I know my worst hire. Like I didn't even need to think about it for a minute. It was like, yep, okay, I got it all. What do you want to know? And it was my hire, right? It was specific. It was an HR leader, and it was my hire. I picked the person. And the red flags were flying the first day, and I, and I just wanted to believe that no, it can't be. I got to make this successful, and I kept pushing, and eventually it was like, wow. I mean, I had gone far too far. I had gone too long, and she had done some damage, and I had to fix that. But that didn't take me long to figure out my worst hire for that book.
Wait, and what did that cost you, Mark? What did it cost you?
It cost me some reputation with my people, right? Because the other leaders, hey, by the way, good to great, right? You read the book. Everybody else realizes that person shouldn't be there, and you're the last one to figure it out. So, I held on too long, and it cost me a little bit of credibility with my team because they knew it, they saw it, but I saw it as well, but I chose not to address it.
And they saw it long before you did.
Oh yeah, of course they did. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because I was in disbelief, man. I was like, well, it can't be. I didn't want to believe it, but at the end of the day, it is. And this is something that fundamentally around leadership is tough, right? We want to hang on, we want to believe. To your point, you want to make successful, but at the end of the day, you got to know when you got to cut ties and move on.
Yeah. Hey, so Mark, a question, and I don't know, we may be getting short on time here, but I got to throw it in here. Talking about leading by example and what we've talked about, today. I mean, why do so many leaders fail to recognize the importance of leading by example? I mean, you would think it's obvious, right? And it's just like, oh, everybody does it. Everybody, is a model at it. Why do people just fail to recognize this?
Well, my opinion is that it's not easy. It's credibility. It's who you are, and I don't think it's easy for a lot of people. If you look at the way some people lead, a lot of people lead, it's power, not influence. And so it's easy to default button to the power. I've got the power. I got the title, the position. I'm just going to push it through and do it what I want. So at the end of the day, I mean, that's where a lot of people default. It's much harder to be influential, to be a leader that people aspire to follow. I mean, that's much more difficult. And then, frankly, that's why I think a lot of people don't do it, because it's not the easy path. Easy path is do it because I'm the boss and I say so. Not do it and here's why, and I'll help you to do it. And that's what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We go on a good plan. We want to get our body in a certain shape, and we work out, and we're going to eat a certain way. And then you think you're just going to go to work and you're going to rise to the occasion, right? It's just going to happen. You're just going to do the right things because you're a good person. And I believe everybody does walk in the door wanting to be a good person, wanting to have a good day. But you get into the crisis, and there seems to be one in most plants every day, and you're going to rise to the best level of your training, the best level of, have you listened to a podcast? Have you, read a book lately? Have you challenged yourself in a different way of thinking? Or are you just walking in the next day to just make parts or whatever your organization is up to?
Yeah.
And I find that's what the separator is. It's those that are doing some different things. Mark, you're writing different articles, you're speaking different areas, and you've come on today, and these are the little things that we share with each other. And I'm fascinated as well, Dave. Like, it's unbelievable that, we can have a topic on leading by example, and you think, well, everybody does that, right? No, it's actually kind of rare.
Right.
A little side story, and to your point about it, leadership and leading by example isn't just when you're at work. Here's the thing. I can't go to work and be an inspirational type leader, et cetera, and then get out the door and become an asshole. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You either are or you aren't, right? And I remember way back in my career, I was a safety person, and I lived in a neighborhood where all the the other employees lived right around me. So I would preach at work all the time that you got to wear your safety glasses, you got to wear your hearing protection, et cetera, et cetera. So I go out and cut my grass, and the buddy behind me was a maintenance guy. And every time I went out to cut my grass, he'd go on his back deck and he'd look over to see if I was wearing hearing protection and I had my safety glasses on and my safety boots. And guess what? I did. And I only did it because he was watching me. Yeah. But I realized, I mean, that you're judged all the time, right? If you're going to talk it at work, you better walk it at work and outside of work.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, hey, Mark, what's that last punch maybe that would come out of nowhere, but that takeaway for our listeners, quite honestly, for Trevor and I, what's the big takeaway? But that's going to be hard to beat what you just said there, but give it a shot anyway.
Well, I would just go back to what the whole premise of our conversation, right? If you choose leadership, if that's your path and you believe that you've got the DNA to be a leader, then you just better be prepared that it's 24/7. It's not 5 days, 9 to 5. It's, you're going to be a leader or you're not going to be a leader, right? And if you can't do it, outside of work, you likely aren't going to be successful inside of work being a leader. So I think you got to make a commitment to it. And you know what? I've always believed that you just got to like people. I mean, if you don't like people, probably leadership's not for you. Because again, you have to have some care. You got to have to be genuine with people, and again, it comes back to what leadership is: being genuine, be kind, and it doesn't mean you can't have super high expectations. I do. And I ask a lot of my people, but I treat them with dignity and respect, and I care about them personally, and I want them to be successful because that's my path as well. I can't be successful if our associates aren't successful. That's the takeaway.
Awesome. Love that.
Mark, I just want to thank you for coming on today, and thank you for our friendship and the things that I've personally learned from you. And I know so many other people, the sacrifices that you make for others and how you show your care through your behavior, right? And how you treat friends outside of work, how you treat people inside your building. And I think that consistency is really your brand. And that's something rare. And if the listeners want to follow some of Mark's content, he's pretty active on LinkedIn, and look him up there. And this has been awesome.
Yeah. So, hey, before we end up closing this, I've got to create an opportunity. We've got 2 Canadians on this podcast today for the listeners, and just for sheer trivia, right? I mean, we've got ice hockey, moose hunting. I mean, give us some Canadian insight, like real quick. I mean, what our listeners may not know about Canadians working in America, or tell us something, because we've got a Canadian powerhouse here today.
Well, I mean, it's funny. People always say, "Are you like?" It happened to me actually yesterday, going to the gym, and lady said, "Are you from Minnesota?" And I said, "Are you from the north?" And I said, "What do you mean? I'm Canadian." She goes, "That's what it is." And I said, "Well, no offense, but I think you talk different, not me. I mean, I don't think I've got the accent, but apparently we do as Canadians for sure. We've got some of our Canadian isms." As I say so. But anyway, yeah, you know what? I love America. I love the United States. I love the people. Of course, I'm Canadian and I love Canada, but I'm very passionate. And having the privilege to have worked in 3 countries, I have lifelong friends in all 3 countries, and I truly am very passionate about that. But I love America and I love being here. And we're the same. We're just Canadians, but we're not that different. We speak a little different. Maybe that's it. I don't know if you want to add anything, Trevor.
Well, I'll throw something here for Dave. Mark's daughter is just at the age where she's looking to go to her next level of schooling. And where do you think, Dave, would be the best school for her to go to?
Clemson.
Well, isn't that funny, Mark?
Yeah, that's good. That's where she's going. Looks like so.
Awesome.
To be a Tiger. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, that's exciting.
Good deal.
I mean, I could go on forever. I hope that you guys will have me back and we can talk about other topics, because I've got a lot of scars and a lot of lessons and a lot of things that I think I'd be happy to share with your listeners.
And I'm setting you up right now for this: born leader versus developed leader. You've got it or you don't. That came up a couple of times in the conversation today, and I think that would be a great opportunity for a future conversation. Mark, I'd love to hear your thoughts and share some feedback on where does that go, right? I mean, so.
Great topic, and I have very strong feelings about it. Again, I use the word DNA. So I'll leave it at that, but I look forward to having that conversation with you.
Good stuff.
All right. Now that we got Mark on once, we can do a follow-up. Excellent. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for taking the time to join us today. How you show up matters.
We'd love for you to subscribe, share with a colleague, and tell us what you think.
Your feedback's important to provide this high-quality, powerful program that makes a difference in your life and others. Take care.
See you next time.